You ever shared something personal with someone only to regret it later? Maybe it was a secret dream, a financial struggle, or a private conflict, something you thought was safe in their hands, only to realize it wasn't. The truth is, not everything in life is meant to be shared, and not everyone deserves to know your deepest thoughts and plans. In a world where people overshare on social media, trust the wrong individuals, and sometimes reveal too much too soon, protecting your privacy isn't just wise, it's necessary. But if I told you that keeping certain things to yourself could save you from heartbreak, betrayal, and unnecessary struggles today, I'm going to share with you the 4 things you should never reveal to anyone, no matter how close they are to you. And by the end of this speech, you'll understand why silence in some cases is your greatest power. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that moment of hesitation before opening up to someone? That tiny voice in the back of your mind warning you, maybe I shouldn't say this. If you have, you're not alone. That voice is there for a reason. It's a reminder that not everything about you is meant for everyone to know. And one of the most important things you should never share is your biggest weaknesses. We all have them: insecurities, struggles, deep fears that linger in the corners of our minds. Maybe it's the fear of failure, the pain of past mistakes, or a personal battle that you wrestle with every day. And sometimes, in moments of vulnerability, we let our guard down and reveal these weaknesses to the wrong people we trust, too easily thinking that others will understand, protect, or respect what we share. But too often that trust is misplaced. Too often people use what they know against us, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Think about your time when you confided in someone. It was sealed, all sacred. This is what the book is about. This is what it talks about. How support, but instead they turned it into gossip, judgment, or even ammunition to use against you. Maybe you shared your struggles at work only to find out later that your words were twisted and spread around. Maybe you told a friend about your self-doubt only for them to use it as leverage in an argument. Or maybe you revealed your fears to someone you loved only to watch them bring it up in moments of conflict, reminding you of what you wished you never said. When your weaknesses fall into the wrong hands, they can be used to control you, manipulate you, or make you feel powerless. You see, the world is not always kind to those who show their vulnerabilities too openly. We live in a time where people are quick to judge and even quicker to exploit if you give them the keys to your insecurities. Don't be surprised when they use them to lock you in a prison of doubt and limitation. Now, I'm not saying you should never seek support. There is strength in confiding in the right people. Trusted mentors, lifelong friends, and those who have proven their loyalty through action, not just words. But even then, discernment is key. Not everyone who smiles at you has your best interest at heart. Not everyone who listens is listening to help some, while listening, to gather information, waiting for the perfect moment to use it to their advantage. I've seen people lose opportunities because they confess their self-doubt in the wrong setting. I've seen relationships fall apart because one person exposed too much of their emotional wounds, giving the other person the power to manipulate their emotions. I've seen strong, capable individuals second-guess themselves simply because they allowed someone to define them by their weaknesses instead of their strengths. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to hand over the very things that make you vulnerable to people who have not earned the right to hold them. So how do you protect yourself? How do you maintain your authenticity without exposing yourself to harm? The answer is simple. Be selective. Not every feeling needs to be shared. Not every fear needs to be spoken aloud. There is a difference between seeking wise counsel and oversharing in the name of connection. There is a difference between finding healing and handing over the weapons that can be used to wound you. And here's the truth. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to hold certain things close to your heart and let time, wisdom, and action speak louder than any words ever could. You don't owe everyone an explanation for your struggles. You don't have to justify your battles to those who only want to observe rather than support. There is power in quiet resilience. There is strength in walking through the fire without announcing how much it burns. And when the time is right, when you have overcome, when you have grown stronger, when you have turned that weakness into wisdom, then and only then can you choose to share your story, not as a confession of weakness, but as a testimony of triumph. So my challenge to you today is this: guard your heart, protect your mind, be careful with your words, because in a world that is always looking for something to use against you, your silence can sometimes be your greatest defense, and your strength, it's not in how much you reveal, it's in how much you overcome without needing the world's validation. Money, it's something we all need, something we all work for, something that can open doors and at the same time close them. It's a tool, a resource, and for many a measure of success. But here's what most people don't realize. Money is also one of the most dangerous things to talk about too openly. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that your financial detail should never be something you casually share with just anyone. I've seen it happen time and time again. Someone comes into a little bit of money, maybe they get a raise at work, maybe they start a business that finally takes off, or maybe they inherit something from a family member, and what do? They tell people, not because they want to brag, but because they're excited, because they're proud, because they think the people around them will celebrate with them. But what happens next? The moment people know about your financial situation, everything changes suddenly. There are expectations suddenly. There are opinions. And worst of all, suddenly there are hands reaching out not to help you but to take from you. People start looking at you differently. They start assuming things. If you have money, they think you should give it to them. If you don't have money, they judge you for it. If you tell them you're struggling, some will use it to feel superior, and if you tell them you're doing well, others will start expecting favors. That's the danger of sharing too much about your financial life. It gives people the power to define you by what you have instead of who you are. Stress struggles. Some will use it to take advantage of you. Lenders will see desperation and increase their interest rates. Friends might offer to help, but with conditions that put you in an even worse position. And in the worst cases, people will start treating you differently, looking at you as someone who is beneath them, simply because you're going through a rough season. You see, when you expose your financial struggles, you give others control over how they perceive you, and perception, whether we like it or not, shapes the way the world treats us. Now, you might be thinking, but what about honesty? What about transparency? Shouldn't I be able to talk about money freely, without worrying about what people think? In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where people make assumptions, where greed exists, where jealousy can turn a friend into a rival. And when it comes to your finances, the less people know, the better. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that the wealthiest people rarely talk about how much they have? They don't walk into a room announcing their income. They don't post about every financial success on social media. Why? Because they understand that money attracts attention, and not all attention is good. When people see wealth, they either want to take it, manipulate it, or compete with it. And even if you don't consider yourself wealthy, the moment you start talking about money, you invite unnecessary scrutiny into your life. Let me give you an example. Say you just got a raise at work, and you casually mention it to a coworker. Suddenly, that coworker starts treating you differently. Maybe they start resenting you. Maybe they feel like they deserve a raise too. And instead of being happy for you, they start undermining you in ways you never expected. Or maybe you tell a friend that you're doing well financially, and the next thing you know, they're asking for a loan. And what happens when you say no? That friendship suddenly feels different, doesn't it? Because now they don't see you as a friend. They see you as someone who could help them but chose not to. And that's a dangerous place to be. And then there's family. Now, family is supposed to be different. Family is supposed to support you, love you unconditionally, be happy when you succeed. But let's be honest, not every family member thinks that way. Some see success as an obligation. You made it, so now you owe us. And if you're not careful, you can find yourself carrying the weight of other people's financial burdens simply because they feel entitled to what you've worked for. That's why, when it comes to money, boundaries are not just important, they're necessary. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you should never help people. There is beauty and generosity, and there's power in using your resources to make a difference. But the moment people know exactly what you have, they will start deciding for you how you should spend it, and before you know it, you're not making financial decisions based on wisdom. You're making them based on guilt, pressure, and the fear of disappointing others. And that's no way to live. So how do you protect yourself? How do you keep your financial life private without coming across as secretive or selfish? First, practice discretion. Not everyone needs to know how much you make, how much you owe, or what's in your bank account. Second, be mindful of who you discuss money with. If you need financial advice, seek it from professionals, not from people who have nothing to lose by giving you bad advice. And finally, remember this: your financial status is not public information. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify your decisions. You don't owe anyone an open ledger of your income and expenses. What you earn, what you save, what you spend, it's your business and yours alone. Because at the end of the day, money comes and goes, but trust is harder to earn back once it's been broken. And when you share too much, you risk losing control over something that should never be in anyone else's hands but your own. How many times have you been excited about something? A big goal, a new opportunity, a dream you'd been working toward, and the moment you shared it with someone, their reaction wasn't what you expected. Maybe they looked at you with doubt in their eyes. Maybe they questioned your ability. Maybe they told you all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And suddenly the excitement you once felt was replaced with hesitation. Why does that happen? Why does sharing our plans sometimes make us feel weaker instead of stronger? The truth is, not every plan is meant to be announced. Not every goal needs an audience. And not every dream should be shared before it's realized. There's something powerful about moving in silence, about working behind the scenes, about letting success be the proof instead of words. But too often, people make the mistake of speaking too soon. They tell their plans to the wrong people, and before they know it, they're met with resistance, negativity, or even sabotage. Maybe you've experienced this. You had a vision for something bigger in your life, and you shared it with a friend, expecting encouragement, only to hear, "Are you sure? That's a good idea." Maybe you had an opportunity in front of you, and you told your co-workers, thinking they'd be happy for you, only to feel the shift in the atmosphere when jealousy crept in. Maybe you told a family member about a risk you were taking, and instead of support, you got fear disguised as advice. "I just don't want to see you get hurt." And in that moment, doubt started creeping in, not because you lacked ability, but because someone else's fear or insecurity was projected onto you. That's why your next big move should never be something you casually share, because when you tell people what you're about to do, you invite their opinions, their doubts, their energy into something that's still in its fragile stage. A dream in its beginning is like a seed. It needs to be planted, nurtured, protected. If you expose it too soon, before it has strong roots, it can be trampled, stolen, or destroyed before it ever has the chance to grow. Think about the most successful people in the world, the innovators, the leaders, the ones who built something from nothing. They didn't spend their time announcing every step they were about to take. They didn't go around telling people, "Watch what I'm about to do." No, they just did it. They worked in silence. They made their moves behind the scenes. And by the time people noticed, it was already done. Because here's the thing, when you've already built something, when you've already accomplished what you set out to do, no one's opinion can take it away from you. But when you speak too soon, you give people the power to INF and influence you before you've even started. And let's be honest, some people don't want to see you win. That's a hard truth. But it's reality. Not everyone in your circle is rooting for you. Some people pretend to be happy for you, but deep down, they're hoping you fail. Some people smile to your face, but secretly want to see you stay exactly where you are. Why? Because your growth challenges them, your ambition reminds them of what they're not doing, your courage exposes their complacency, and instead of using that as inspiration to elevate themselves, they'd rather pull you down to keep things the same. That's why the fewer people who know your plans, the better, because the moment you share, you give others the chance to interfere, and not everyone interferes with good intentions. Now, I'm not saying you should keep everything to yourself forever. There's wisdom in seeking guidance from the right people, mentors, advisors, those who have the experience to help you navigate your journey, but even then, choose wisely. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your process. Some people only need to see the finished product. Some people should only find out what you've been working on when they see the results with their own eyes. And when they ask, "Why didn't you tell me?" the answer is simple: because I was busy doing it. And another thing, when you keep your moves private, you remove unnecessary pressure. Have you ever noticed that when you tell people your plans, suddenly you feel this overwhelming need to prove yourself? It's no longer just about achieving your goal, it's about making sure you don't fail in front of the people who are watching. But when you keep things to yourself, you give yourself the space to experiment, to fail, to adjust, to grow, without the weight of other people's expectations on your shoulders. You move at your own pace. You make decisions based on what's right for you, not based on what you feel others expect of you. Some of the most powerful moves you will ever make in life will happen in silence. Some of your biggest breakthroughs will come when no one is watching. And when the time is right, when you've built what you set out to build, when you've achieved what you set out to achieve, then and only then will the world see what you were working on. But by that point, it won't just be words, it'll be proof. And no one can argue with proof. So remember this: don't speak too soon. Don't reveal your plans before they're ready. Protect your dreams like they're precious, because they are. Move in silence and let your success be the only announcement you ever need to make. Conflict is a part of life, no matter how kind, patient, or understanding you are. At some point you will have disagreements. Maybe it's with a friend, a coworker, a family member, or even a stranger. And when those conflicts happen, the natural reaction is to talk about them, to vent, to explain your side, to seek validation from others. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: personal conflicts and drama should never be shared freely, because the more you involve people in your disputes, the messier they become. We've all seen it happen. Someone gets into an argument, and before they've even tried to resolve it, they've already told half the world about it. They post about it online, they tell mutual friends, they bring outsiders into something that was never their business to begin with. And what happens? Instead of moving toward a solution, the conflict grows. Instead of finding peace, bitterness takes root. Instead of reconciliation, lines are drawn. And suddenly it's not just two people in disagreement, it's an entire audience choosing sides. Why do people do this? Why do we feel the need to share our personal conflicts with others? Sometimes it's because we want sympathy. We want someone to hear our story and tell us we're right. Other times, it's because we want justice. We want others to see what was done to us, to take our side, to hold the other person accountable. But what we fail to realize is that the more we talk, the harder it becomes to truly resolve anything. Because now it's no longer about the two people involved, it's about everyone who has heard the story, formed an opinion, and contributed their own emotions to something that should have remained private. And let's be honest, people love drama. They may act like they're just listening to help, but in reality, some are only there to feed on the negativity. They don't actually care about finding a resolution. They just enjoy the entertainment. They want to hear the details, they want to add their input, They want to stir the pot, and when you share your conflicts with the wrong people, you give them the power to turn a small issue into something far bigger than it ever needed to be. But here's the most dangerous part. When you speak badly about someone, in the heat of the moment, when you expose every flaw, every mistake, every wrongdoing, you create an image of that person in other people's minds that may never go away, even if you and that person later make peace, even if you forgive each other, even if you move on. The people you told will still remember, and while you may have let go of the anger, they may not. While you may have healed, they may still hold on to the bitterness. For you, and suddenly your private conflict has turned into a lasting division, all because it was shared too soon, too widely, and with people who had no business being involved. Think about relationships. How many times have you seen someone get into an argument with their spouse, their partner, or their friend, and instead of working it out privately, they go tell everyone about it? They call their friends, they complain to their co-workers, they post cryptic messages online, and then, when the fight is over, when they've worked through it, moved on, everyone they told is still holding on to the anger for them now. The next time their friends see that person, they don't see them as the spouse or friend who made a mistake and apologize. They see them as the villain in the story they were told. And whether they realize it or not, that negative image lingers, it affects relationships, it changes the way people interact, and all of it could have been avoided if the conflict had been kept between the people it actually involved. And it's not just about personal relationships, this happens in workplaces and churches and families and friendships. One misunderstanding, one disagreement, and instead of addressing it directly, people start talking, they whisper, they spread rumors, they create division, and what started as something small becomes something much bigger simply because it wasn't handled with maturity and wisdom, because instead of seeking a solution, people sought attention. Instead of choosing discretion, they chose to make it a spectacle. And in the end, no one wins. So what's the right way to handle conflict? First, go directly to the person involved. If someone has wronged you, talk to them. Not everyone else. Most conflicts can be resolved with a simple conversation, but that can happen if you've already turned it into a public issue. Second, be mindful of your emotions. Don't speak in anger. Don't share things just because you want to be heard. Words spoken in frustration can do permanent damage, and once they're out, you can't take them back. And third, ask yourself this before sharing anything. Will this bring resolution or will this bring division? If the answer is division, it's best left unsaid. Not every battle needs an audience. Not every disagreement needs to be turned into a public debate. Some things are best handled quietly, with dignity, with wisdom. And when you learn to handle conflict this way, you'll find that peace comes much easier, relationships last much longer, and the people around you will respect you far more for your ability to keep certain things private.